All right, so far we've handled create. We've handled, that's our post requests. We've handled read, which is our get requests. And here I'm going to show you delete. So with what we have in our application, here's our books right now. We can go into each book and we have the ability to attach a hashtag to a book. So, and then we have some hashtags that are already in here. Like Java and programming. So if I go to my headfirst Java and I try to do TDD and hit submit, nothing comes in here because that hashtag doesn't exist. So let's take a look at our API right now. Here's our JSON. Notice that we have a collection of hashtags available on each book, but we have not assigned any hashtags to our book yet. So let me go ahead and take one of these hashtags and place it on my book. So I'm going to do Java. Hit submit here. So now Java is a hashtag that's attached to this book. So we can go back here and we can refresh our JSON and we can see our endpoint there, API books. Now you can see that that hashtag has been attached to that headfirst Java book. All right, so this is something that we can do. Now, when we build this out, we look at our application here. When we go to hashtags, let's say I want to delete this hashtag. Let's see what happens here. So I remove this hashtag. And I'm getting an error message right now. But if I was to add a hashtag, that hashtag is not attached to any of our books. I can successfully remove that hashtag. So we can look at the functionality for that, and then we might have to add some functionality so that we can go through and check these items. If they exist on that particular book, then we'll have to remove them. So here's the basics right now. For, let's say, just super basic, super easy just to get started with. A hashtag not attached to a book. We don't have to check anything on that, so we can easily add it and then remove it from the database. Right, there it is. We can come in here, delete that hashtag, and then we can refresh our API and we can see it's gone. It's not going to let us at the moment release one of these that has a relationship attached to a book. So let's get started, and I'll show you the functionality here. So back end, we're looking at the hashtag REST controller. And so just like it was super basic for us to add a hashtag at the endpoint in our hashtag REST controller, here's the delete mapping. And what we need to do here at this endpoint is we need to grab the ID of the particular hashtag that we want to remove. Okay, so we're basically just finding that hashtag by ID. If it exists, we can remove it. And then let's return the rest of that collection so that we can see it update on the page. So that's pretty much the mission here on the back end. On the front end, here's our delete request, and it's 100% exactly like our post request. I got a headers, CORS headers issue, which you could potentially get with posts as well. So it would be safe to add this in on both the post and the delete. Okay, but you can see the only thing that really changes here is the method, and that's our delete request. Oh, well, also we don't have a request body since we're not turning anything into JSON, right? We're eliminating, we're removing stuff. So that's gone. So I guess it would look, to be honest with you, more like the GET request there than it does the POST request. But these all look really similar. And then in our index.js, I wanted to find out, well, where's the location of exactly where I want to remove this. And so what I did is I dove into the singular book. Remember, we're on a book or we're on a hashtag. And yeah, we're in the hashtags here. So here's our function, nav hashtags, right? So it's this scenario on this page. Okay, so inside of nav hashtags, here is my post request. And then just below that, we're adding the delete request. So we're staying inside, that's where that function closes. Trace that line the whole way up here to nav hashtags. So we're staying inside of that function. Here's our delete request. So what we're doing is we are looking for our button. Our button is hashtags-list__remove. That's the class that I have attached to that button. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'll move this over here on the side. Okay, so what are we looking for here? We're looking for there's our X button. All right, it has a class of hashtags-list__remove. So if our event.target contains that, what we need to do is we need to grab that hashtag ID. All right, so I'm query selecting for this hidden input. You have to have this hidden input here so that you can track the ID on each of those hashtags. And we're just grabbing that ID. So something else to note, the button and the hidden input are wrapped inside of that list item. That way these things can be kept track of for each list item that we have. So basically what I've done here in this component is add these two lines of code inside of that list item. And that ID is what we're able to grab here, right? The hashtag ID, and then using the backticks, here because I'm embedding a variable inside of this endpoint API/hashtags/the ID that we want, and then delete that hashtag. And that's going to match up with our backend method here where we're looking for that ID. All right, so that's a nice way to add and remove a hashtag. Let's see if we can remove the hashtags that are attached to the book, something that's already embedded in the book. Okay, so just to remind you of where we're at right now, let's say, here's our hashtags right now, Java and programming. Take a look at those in our API. All right, so we go to our book, and let's say on Head First Java, we add both Java and we add programming. Okay, so we put those on here. Let's try to add TDD. We can't because it doesn't exist yet in our database. So in our hashtags, let's go ahead and save TDD. Now in our books, Head First Java, I can add TDD on there. Okay, let's also go into our books and let's go to TDD by example and let's add TDD hashtag. So it's in two different spots now. Okay, it's in two different places. So that's weird that I'm getting this error over here. That's something I'm going to have to look at, more of a warning that's happening. So now our books, Head First Java, sees those hashtags. TDD by example sees that hashtag. I cannot remove these because they are attached to the books. So what are we going to do to fix that? Nothing on the front end for that. We just need to deal with our back end here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So I want to work with wherever that functionality occurs. So here it is in my hashtag REST controller, and we want to make sure we're working inside of this if statement. So basically, before we delete that hashtag from the repo altogether, from the database altogether, we've got to remove it from the books. We did something similar in the MVC example earlier on in this module. So let's iterate over our books. Okay. I'm going to import the book. Be careful here. Make sure it's from our We Can Code It library demo. So we'll import the book. So for each book that's attached to whatever this particular hashtag is, when we call that get books collection, which is nice, we already have that set up from our previous work that we've done in the application. Now we can do book.delete hashtag, which is also already existing in our application. And then we can put that object in here, which is the optional hashtag that we're removing. So there we go. Now the last thing that I need to do is I need to save that book. And so that that book gets updated now that this removal has taken place. So we need to import our, we need to inject our book repository here. Okay, and let's see if that imported for us, and it did. All right, so now that we have that all set up, the idea here is that if it's attached to that book, let's remove it from that book first, then we can remove it from the database altogether. So I'm going to hit the hammer here and rebuild. Okay, and since I did a rebuild, we'll have to go back in and add these hashtags. So let's go ahead and throw TDD on here. Okay, and then let's go into books, head first Java, we'll save Java. We'll save programming, and we'll save the TDD hashtag attached to that book. And let's go ahead into TDD by example, and we'll throw TDD on there. Okay, so there's our hashtags. All right, there's our hashtags in our database. And then there's our books, which the hashtags are attached to, as we can see. So let's go ahead and see if they'll actually remove now. Okay, we'll remove all three. All right, they're gone. Let's check our books. All right, no longer do they have those hashtags attached to them. And we can go ahead and refresh our API here and see that the hashtags are gone. And let's go to the hashtags endpoint, and you can see that they're gone as well. So that's basically removal. And yeah, so now you'll have full control. If there's relationships, just think about what entity owns that relationship first. You've got to handle it there, and then you can remove it from the database altogether. And so now that you've got that in your arsenal, you've been able to do everything except an update. Update, you know, follow along just like a post request. You'll have fields to change that word or that variable in an input field, and then it would do the update for you. So that would follow the same pattern.